So shall we start, sir?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining the webinar. I am Sushma here, joined from IIM Bangalore Alumni Office. As you all know, the topic of today's session is top 5 strategies for scale and profitability. And we have with us our alum, Mr. Shailendra Marathe, and he's alumnus of PGSCM 2004 and 7 batch. He's virtual CFO and he's also a startup mentor and author. Yeah. So today's webinar session will be around 1 hour and followed by a Q&A. If you have any, at the end, if you have any questions, please type in a chat window. Our speaker will take the questions at the end. Yeah. If you have any problem in joining, or if you're not able to hear anything, just please type in a chat window. I'll reply to your message. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again. Welcome to the session. Yeah. Welcome again, sir. Thank you. You can take over.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Shailendra Marathe. I run a boutique consulting firm, CFO Axis, based out of Pune. One of the things I focus on is strategic aspects of pricing, and we are here to discuss today what are some of the top strategies that we can use for scaling and profitability. What we'll cover today is why pricing is important and how it impacts profit. Some time on that, maybe 5 minutes. We'll look at what are the pillars of scalability. Today we talk about being able to run scalable businesses, right? And there is some degree of understanding we need to have what is the difference between simple growth and scale. So we'll discuss about that, and then we'll talk about what are the imperatives or what are the key things that should be kept in mind at the product design stage itself. For example, if you are starting or launching a startup, or if you are running a existing company, what things you need to keep in mind as far as the product design is concerned, right?
So can you close? Yeah, you have closed. Thank
you.
Yeah.
But I think some of the participants are saying they are not able to hear me, but I think I'm able to hear you very well.
Okay. Yes, it's audible. Yeah, I'll just reply. I'll just check those messages.
Sure. And then we'll talk about some of the pricing strategies that are very very useful when you want to develop a scalable and profitable business, right? So let's go with that. Let's look at this as an example. I have just taken this screenshot from one of the large e-commerce player sites some time back, right? So when we talk about price, it implies a lot of things. It's not simply a monetary value that we see attached. For example, there is always a price tag, right? Let's say we walk into a Louis Philippe or a Raymond showroom and we see a price tag, but there is a lot of science and art behind how that price comes to be there. Let's look at this particular example. I don't remember what the product is. I think it's an electronic product. They are stating here the maximum retail price. As you know, MRP is legally mandated in India, so it is there, and then that is stuck off, right? So the MRP is still shown but stuck off, and there is a price at which this item is being offered, and that is 249, which is shown in red color and in little bit of a bigger font, and it's also bold, I believe, right? In addition to that, you have free delivery, which is very clearly mentioned over there, and there are details that are hidden away in case you want to go and look at the details, because if you give too many details when you are showing the price to the customer, it will tax his brain a lot, and when you put customer in that kind of a difficult situation, typically they tend not to take the decision. And then what is being shown here is the amount of saving, again in bold red, maybe slightly in a sort of smaller font, and then the percentage figure is also there, right? 74%. It's screaming at us saying, grab this product right now. There's a huge amount of saving to be made in terms of the money, 711 rupees, as well as in terms of percentage. 74% saving on the MRP looks like really a fantastic kind of a deal. And the price presented is including all the taxes, because we as consumers will not know what exactly is the price on this particular item, because in India we have GST slabs. In some of the countries they don't have GST slabs. They have a single GST, or at times only 2 layers of GST. So if this price is not including GST, I have to again run the calculation if I have to compare with something else, it sort of makes my decision difficult. So the way this is being presented is to make decision easy for you and highlight those important aspects of price that will aid you in making the decision. Uh, Generally, if the percentage saving is bigger, then the percentage saving is shown in a bigger font, right? For example, a 4 rupees discount may not look much, right? But if it is 40% discount, then in that case, the 40% figure is shown bigger, right? So that it feels like you are getting really a fantastic amount of discount. So this is how basically the price is presented to us as a consumer. But behind that, there is a lot of science, and if many of us are in business and professions, you want to also look at it from the other side, that of the seller. So while doing that, I think one thing we have to understand is many entrepreneurs, business owners, startup founders, and others spend a substantial amount of time fine-tuning some aspects of business that may not have as much of an impact on their growth and profitability as price would have. And when I talk to many entrepreneurs as a part of my consulting practice, I realize they are focused a lot on doing things that are obviously important to their business, but not as important. For example, cutting costs, right? And cutting costs can come in many forms. You might want to negotiate with your suppliers how what price they are giving. Can they give us volume discount? Can they give us special discounts? Today, asking for COVID discount is in fashion, right? So that's always an aim at cutting costs. Can you sort of replace your people with maybe someone who is willing to work at a lower cost, right? But cutting costs, for example, has its own disadvantages or has some kind of a negative impact on business. If you are slashing your employees, the employee morale goes down. If you negotiate too hard with your suppliers, basically the suppliers don't treat you as a premium customer, right? If they get a better customer, they will probably sort of give you a lesser focus. So instead of that, if you look at what value you are giving to the customer and align your prices to that, it is possible that you can get much better benefits by way of growth as well as profitability in your business. This is just an example of levers of business profitability. So typically, you look at fixed cost reduction. So one way of reducing your increasing the profitability is to reduce your fixed cost of running business. In the traditional business, it is in the form of land, building, plant and machinery, furniture, warehouses, so on and so forth. In the let's say new age technology businesses, it is mainly in the form of product development, because that's one cost to incur, and then anything else that is fixed in nature or non-variable in nature. The second thing is you can increase the sort of reduce the variable cost of running business, the cost that varies directly with the volume of production as it is classically defined. Third thing is you can of course increase your volume, right? As we have seen in this traditional, the pricing, the strategic aspects of running business. If you are a cost player, for example, you play on volume, right? So you can increase the volume of business, and usually economies of scale kick in, and you are able to sort of contribute more towards your fixed cost recovery, and then your profit goes up. And then there is fourth lever, which is basically if you can play right on your pricing for your customers, then that can also have an impact on your business profitability. There is a HBR article on managing price and gaining profit, and they studied, they quote a study with some 2,400 plus companies. I think this is a reasonably big study. There are other studies as well, which compared the impact of various levers of business profitability. In this case, they looked at how much is the impact on business profitability if there is 1% improvement in a particular lever. Let's say you reduce your fixed cost by 1%. That impacted the profitability by 2.3% positively. By reducing the fixed cost or improving on the fixed cost, 2.3% positive impact on profitability was achieved. Same way, by increasing volume, by 1%, they found that the profitability went up by 3.3%. By obviously improving variable cost, meaning reducing variable cost, the profitability went up by about 7.8%. That's just 1% improvement in the lever and the impact on profitability. But the biggest impact came when they isolated the other impacts and looked at purely the impact of pricing. 1% improvement in pricing, that led to a substantial impact, positive impact on the business profitability, and it was as high as 11.1%, which is almost equal to the sum of all the other levers, right? So that is how much is the impact of pricing on profitability in business, and that's why we are discussing the top 5 pricing strategies today. The guru of marketing, Philip Kotler, says that you don't sell through price, you actually sell the price, right? So much is the importance, because even from the buyer's perspective, whether it is B2B or B2C sale, price is one of the always the important criteria in taking decision. And if you are charging higher price, for example, if you are a premium player, you need to articulate the value you deliver to the customer very, very well. If you are not able to do that, simply the premium positioning cannot be achieved. But though we can understand, even intuitively, some business people understand that, if I can get higher profit price from the customer, obviously my profitability will increase. But in the end, most of the businesses, when they start with benchmarking the price with the nearest competitor. Right? If I am setting up, let's say, a tea stall, I look at, what are the other tea sellers in the market, maybe around me in 500 meters area. How much is the price at which they are selling tea? What kind of tea they are selling, right? And then I somehow try to benchmark against that, because that is the immediate choice available to the customer if they don't want to come to me. So these are the alternatives available to the customer. But that's a very simplistic case. But if you look at today's businesses, the pricing strategies have evolved a lot over last couple of decades. And in my book, Price to Profit, I have classified them in these 5 buckets. Obviously, you can classify them in whichever way you want. These are not watertight buckets. You can look at some of the pricing strategies as traditional strategies which have been in existence for fairly long time, probably a century or more, right? So cost plus pricing strategy, it has been in existence for a very long time, and specifically became prominent during the world wars, where the government had to give out big contracts to the defense manufacturers for producing guns, for producing tanks, so on and so forth, or even aircraft and missiles. And how would the government pay them, right? So typically, if it costs $1 million to produce something, the governments might have given them, 1.1, $1.2 million, which means it's a cost plus kind of a pricing strategy. And slowly, as the markets opened up, as the business environment changed, as the consumerism come in, there was more of a sales-driven pricing strategies that came in. Give introductory price, to capture the market share initially, right? Most businesses follow this, right? Introduce the products or services at a reasonably lower rate to entice the customers, sort of help them take the decision to try out your product, and then slowly you increase the price. I have experienced this myself. For example, when the new restaurant starts, typically it has lower prices, and you can see in a year or two's time, as they build a customer base, as the customers get the taste of the food in that restaurant and they like it, slowly the price is up. And you might find that the neighborhood restaurant where you used to go frequently, in about 3 years time the price would have more than doubled, right? Obviously the cost has not gone up that much. Then there are modern strategies like pricing for a particular segment. For example, there are marginal pricing and other strategies. And then we have risk reward and innovative strategies which have been recently used quite a lot. Right? Licensing, for example, when you license a product, right? The both the sides, there is a balancing of risk and reward that is happening. If you are looking at innovative strategies like some of those that we will discuss today, these are not easily sort of implementable, but most of the companies can implement that if you have the right kind of expertise. So selecting pricing strategy is very key in any business. And if we look at the scaling and profitability and relation to the pricing, one thing we have to understand that there are some guiding principles that we should set, and based on that we should take all these decisions. One fundamental principle is focus includes defocus, right? So I remember sort of I'm not trying to criticize, but if you look at the Indian traditional IT services companies, right? So we used to go, and I worked in IT for about 18 years. And we'll tell the customer, we do this, of course, and I have been in banking and capital markets for very long period of time. But we also used to do many other things, right? So though we were focused in some way, we didn't have any kind of defocus. We wouldn't say we don't do this, right? But if you want to scale your business and run it profitably, you should clearly know what you don't do. Are your products or your services that are productized, are they scalable, right? That is one very, very important thing we have to remember. The second is we have to understand the difference between scale and growth, right? A business grows definitely.
Sorry to interfere, sir. You have opened your video window, no? Can you just move to the bottom, sir? It is coinciding.
This one.
Yeah, video window. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So scale is not same as growth, right? So today, if you look at the way the funding is happening for businesses, for example, right? Everybody is looking for a scalable business model. And what is it exactly? Is it the same as growth, right? Traditional growth. For example, we looked at how companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter and others have grown, right? They are scalable business inherently, and we find that many traditional IT services or ITS companies face a challenge in scaling. They have grown well, but then their sort of costs also have moved up as much as the revenue. So we look at some of the the imperatives of scaling, and one of the other factors to remember is that the pricing is very critical element of scalability and profitability, right? So when we discuss some of the examples, we'll also see how pricing is helping scale as well as make better profit. And then fourth, and I think one important thing we have to remember is cash is king, right? One of my, I think the first session that I had when I was at IIM Bangalore was accounting. I think the first day, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we had Professor Sundar Rajan or Sundi, as we used to very fondly call him. And he, one thing that he said, and I think he didn't attribute it to himself. He obviously was a very humble person who said it's anonymous, but he said sales is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is reality, right? Sometimes the larger sales, looks very good, right? This company is growing at 40%, 50%. They have achieved $1 million turnover, a billion turnover, right? It looks very, very good. But after all, it's vanity. It's something that people will see and just feel good factor. But profit is sanity. I mean, are you actually making a profit in your business? And then end of the day, cash is reality, right? So every business has to generate positive cash flows. If you look at any kind of business valuation model, is also one of the very important valuation fundamentals is basically free cash flow model, FCF as we call it, right? So cash is very, very important in business. So all these things you need to keep into account when you are trying to build a business model, whether you are a startup or even you are an existing company. Because in some cases, I find, for example, a lot of entrepreneurs, the survival rate of the startups is of course very, very low, traditionally as well as in the new startups. But even if they survive for a long period of time, after a point in time, they are not able to scale or grow, and the business stagnates because they are not able to understand how basically the mechanics of scale, profitability, and cash works. So these are the principles that we should very, very well understand. I think there is a question, but if it's not critical, maybe I'll take it towards the end. Please hold on to the question. We'll try to tackle as many questions as possible towards the end. Sushma, if you think some question needs to be taken up immediately, please let me know. I will answer that question.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what exactly is scale and what are the pillars of scalability, right? As I would like to call it. So one of the fundamental pillars of scalability is ease of customer acquisition. If your business cannot acquire customers easily, right, then there is a challenge because when you want to grow from, let's say, 1 crore to 2 crore turnover is going to be a big challenge for you. Are you depending on do you have to essentially visit the customers, for example? Do you have to have prolonged discussions with them on very technical aspects of business? Right, then it makes scalability. It makes scalability difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible. It makes scalability difficult. Of course, we have companies like Larsen and Toubro, for example, they're executing very high tech engineering contracts for the customers. I'm not saying it cannot be done, right? But if you can more easily acquire the customer, for example, if you have sales service capabilities, where the customers understand your price, everything is transparent, they can simply sign on. Then that's, I think, one of the best things to do, right? So ease of customer acquisition is very important. The second is your cost of customer acquisition should be lower, and because customer acquisition cost forms a very large portion of a growing company, so you have to see that that cost is maintained as low as possible, and think of various channels, models, referrals, kind of thing from one customer to another. How you can lower your cost of customer acquisition from various channels, and this could be, for example, you have a distribution system in place, you have your own website, you are selling through e-commerce players, right? So many aspects of that, and then how are you able to gain the revenue momentum? How quickly can you grow your revenue? Are you able to cross sell products? Are you able to upsell products, right? Do you have any kind of a funnel built in where you're managing the equation of customer trust, customer risk, as well as the money that customer is spending with you, right? These three factors, trust, risk, and money, are very important for a customer to sign up with you. I like to sign up anywhere and see that my risk is minimal, money I'm spending is minimal to start with, and as I develop the trust in that particular product or that company, I'll be willing to take higher risk of engaging with them and paying them higher money. That's why this kind of revenue momentum is very, very important. Uh, the cost structure should be non-linear. Your costs don't have to essentially go up every time you acquire a new customer and service them, right? That's very, very important. Uh, Leverage technology as much as possible. I think this aspect doesn't have to be mentioned today. Create intellectual property, because what is going to differentiate you from somebody else? And intellectual property doesn't have to be necessarily, in terms of technology or a patent or a trademark or something like that. It can be even internal. I mean, you are not registered the intellectual property, but let's say you have very good way of engaging with the customers. You are a restaurant, and your training of your the front office staff is fabulous, right? It may be patented. You may not have any kind of patent or trademark or copyright for that, right? But that's kind of an intellectual property that you have created. Your great training manuals, the way you train those people. If you have very big business, how you do the training, train the trainers, kind of thing, very, very important. To create an intellectual property in business, develop mutually beneficial partner ecosystem. That is also very important. If you look at many of these big companies that are scaled up, and you go to their website, for example, you'll find that they will list lot of their ecosystem partners with pride. And also another aspect to note is that in some cases they are competing with them in some of their product lines. But they know how to manage that kind of equation and develop a mutually beneficial relationship with them. And the last one is focus on resolving constraints. So for example, every business has one or other constraint. We can broadly classify them into internal and external. For example, external is of course a marketplace, customer acquisition, is the demand growing or not, what's happening in the economy, COVID for example, right? So a lot of businesses face an external constraint which could not be solved. Restaurants simply had to be closed down, for example. The event could not happen. Or there could be internal constraints, for example, how efficiently you are using your cash. What is the cash velocity, right? Are there any operational constraints? So you need to focus on resolving those constraints, otherwise you will not be able to scale. So these are some of the aspects that we need to take into account, and we'll discuss this as we go along when we look at particular pricing model, how they help resolve some of these constraints, for example, or how they help leverage these pillars of scalability. Moving on, when you get into the, I mentioned earlier that some of these factors we need to take into account, especially about pricing and scalability when we are doing the product design itself, because later going back and changing the product design is something that takes a lot of time, as well as sometimes it will be difficult to again go back to the customer and sell that new product, because once the customer has a bad experience with you, he may not come back to you, right? It's a very difficult sale then. So one is at the product design stage, distinguish between desire and demand, right? This sounds obvious, but sometimes I've seen that the products that are made have a lot of features which the customer desires, but he doesn't necessarily demand, right? But slowly, of course, the other part of this is the supply creates its own demand. So sometimes you start giving that feature, and after some time the customer starts demanding that. But still, you should be able to distinguish between these two, because the customer is ultimately going to value and pay on the basis of what is demanding rather than what is purely desiring. Riches are in niches, of course, doesn't have to be told. If you are a very focused player, you are in a niche, obviously you can do the best and you can command a premium. That is one of the best things to do. If you look at, I mean, I think many companies can be quoted as example. I at times quote Raymond as an example, right? Very focused, correct? The complete man, right? I think that's their tagline. They started with shooting, premium positioning, etc., etc., and they slowly expanded within the same segment. Right now, they have valets, they have other products also, but in the same kind of a niche. Co-create the product as much as possible, because when you co-create the product, you will discover a lot of customer needs. Obviously, that doesn't need to be told, but you will also understand what is important for the customer, what is the customer really willing to pay for. That's very important when you take your pricing decision. Target customer micro segment. This is also obvious, but at times people miss this. You have a customer segment. Let's say we are looking at maybe you are an edutech company. You are looking at class 10 class 10 standard students as your customer segment. But within that, there are a lot of micro segments. So CBSE students, ICSE students, the state board students. These are the segments that come to my mind immediately. And within that, there are students, maybe in tier one cities, tier two cities, and also there is a purchasing power, right? Their parents have certain amount of purchasing power. How can you combine all these things? The third, of course, one more thing in that could be the vernacular language, the native language in which the students have learned, right? So those kind of micro segments you should be able to very clearly identify. And then when you create products, you have to create their variants that tackle those particular micro segments. So if you are very focused, you target a particular micro segment of the customer feels that this is really the product for me, and he is willing to pay you more for that. Build a product funnel. There are ways of building that. You basically start with products that are sort of, as I told you about the time that the customer has to spend with you, the money he has to spend, and the risk he is taking. All is related to the kind of trust he has with you, right? So slowly, as you sort of have the products that let the customer experience you, build the trust in you with a low ticket and low value product. He spends less time with you and has less risk. As the customer goes along that route, he develops slowly higher trust in you, and he is willing to invest more with you. So build that kind of a product funnel. Your products have to address all these things. Your pricing also has to address all these factors. Leverage Diderot effect. This is one of the things that I think is very important. So what is the key product for which the customer is coming to you, right? Once you know that, bring him in for that and sell him other things very easily. Because that one product will differentiate you from the competition. Again, going back and looking at Raymond as an example, right? Raymond sells shoes also. They sell socks also, right? Handkerchiefs also. But they wouldn't advertise that in a big way. They will advertise their shoes. And they will show the image of a executive handling some meeting, and the way he is wearing that, carrying himself. Same, they will show image of a man in a sort of when he is getting married, right? So people go to the Raymond shop mainly thinking of it as something where he will buy a suit, and slowly he gets accustomed to the other products, and the other products sell themselves without even advertising in a big way. So this is something that is called Diderot effect, where you bring in the customer and you create a very niche positioning, something that others are not able to easily compete with, and then you easily sell the other products to the customer. So this is again a sort of cross sell upsell kind of a strategy, but using a very particular niche kind of positioning. And last thing, I think one thing we should remember in mind is reduce order to cash cycle time, right? How fast can we get the money from the customer? This is very important, because as we see today, many of the companies keep burning money for a very long period of time. Obviously, there are outliers like I think Byju's, I don't know, many examples could be there. Amazon is burning a lot of cash, but they are really having a lot of funding and access to a lot of funds, right? So they cannot be taken as really examples. They are probably 1% or less than that of the market. But most of us should try to reduce order to cash life cycle so that we get our cash flow running ASAP, right? And our product design basically has to address this kind of things. So this brings back to the meat of the discussion today, and I think hopefully we'll spend about 25 to 30 minutes on this. Is what are those pricing strategies that handle these scale imperatives? They look at this profitability. They look at the product design, right? How you can design product which using these kind of pricing strategies. So of course there are many, but some of these which I have seen very frequently, and when I consult with the customers, these simple strategies have helped the customers in a really fantastic way, right? And I'll tell some of the case studies to you as we go along. First, create choice, right? Second is bundle or unbundled products. The third is offer pay per use. The fourth is onboard with premium strategy, and the last one obviously anchoring and decoy. So these five at least what I have seen in practice to be some of the best strategies that someone can use to get more of scale and profitability. So let's go one by one. If you have seen this movie Godfather, of course, I think I would like to be in a position where Godfather is, right? The customer talks to me and I make him an offer he cannot refuse, right? I tell him, okay, this is what I'm going to charge you, and this is how I deliver services, and he cannot say no. But unfortunately for me, and fortunately for the customer, I'm not, Marlon Brando, Godfather, Don Vito. So I'm not that, and most of us are not that, thankfully, right? So we cannot really make an offer to the customer saying this is what you have got and you have got to take it, right? And as a consumer, yes, we are happy. We are not in that situation. We are not in that kind of a monopolistic situation. As I'm sitting here, I can hear the noise of the generator running in our apartment, right? Because Mahadistam, sort of the lights go off very frequently. I don't have any choice, right? So I'd like to have a choice as a customer. Those of us who are married and probably have gone for shopping, I think pre-marriage, with your to-be wife would have, probably seen what is the importance of a choice, right? Don't want to sound misogynist, but my wife is very okay with this. So when we went for our, prior to marriage for shopping, my wife would have spent about 6 hours and she bought the sari which was, what we had seen first, right? So that's the one that we like, because most of us as consumers want to have a choice. I think that is very very inherent, and the other reasons why we should also have choice. The and if we don't have choice, right, we cannot make up our mind. It's a kind of a yes or no kind of a choice that is being given to us. Take it or leave it, and nobody wants that, right? Nobody. I don't like to be told, take this or leave it. Second is, once if I don't have a choice then and there, I start comparing it with something else. I might look at the competitor's product. What you want to do is you want to give adequate choice to the customer within your range of products, right? That's very important. This sounds very simple, but when I talk to many, I mean, this is actually I'm talking about businesses running for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. They are not giving choices to the customer, and when they have to create the choice, they are not very clear how exactly you create the choice, and this requires a very very deep understanding of what the customer wants, the kind of desire versus demand kind of things. What are the features in our products that are relevant to the customer? For example, there may be high tech features in my product that are not relevant to the customer. So you need to articulate that to the customer. You really need to create a menu or a list of all those features. Create check boxes. What you are giving to the customer, and create a choice out of that. Right. So, for example, if, I worked with one of the clients who have a fintech product, right, and it was out there in the market for 6 months, and they had only one version of the product, available at some X hundred rupees per year. Right. It's a fintech product, and then we created a choice. We created three products out of that after some time, and for example, the positioning actually improved. We could improve the price tremendously. The highest range product was we priced it at about 4, and it is actually selling at that. We could increase the price 4x because we certain features that could be attractive to the non-Indian customers who are staying abroad, right? And they are willing to pay in dollars, and the price of the customer is not much. You can imagine 200 rupees doesn't mean much in US dollars, right? So we are able to get really a very big boost in price, and also by creating this kind of a choice, we are addressing customer micro segment. Every customer wants something different, right? So he wants to feel unique. So they are giving me something that I want. For example, I'm just giving a basic example. If I have a child who's into, let's say, 10th standard, and I think I can afford to send into a class which is very jazzy. The environment is, they have AC and there is a lot of sitting space, etc., etc. I'm willing to pay a higher price, right? So you have to take those things into account and create, that kind of a segmentation and choice for the customer. This is a simple example, something as simple as broadband, right? If you really look at it, it's a clear commodity product. I don't see what it is. It doesn't smell. There is no taste to that. It's not like, if I go to somewhere like Savana Bhavan versus if I go to Kobra Vilas or something like that, the dosa could be different, right? Or it does. But here I can't smell. That's nothing like that. As long as the broadband is working, I'm happy with that. I curse them when broadband doesn't work. I never, say them thank you. Last 3 days the connection never dropped. Right? Do I do that? Most of us don't do that. But within that, I've just put Airtel as an example. So many of the telecom customers do this, of course. Look at the way they have created the choice for the customer. Right? So there is a monthly rental, some 4,000, excluding GST, so plus whatever 18%. That's the premium package, and then they have right now, starting from 800, which is for the base customer, right? And then they have sort of created different variants. Now you need to convince the customer that these choices are meaningful. You cannot create the choices just for the heck of it. Give the same product, almost same, just little bit change here and there. No, it won't work because the customer will see through that. So they have created a lot of real differentiators. One is obviously speed, very important. How much is the data that it can consume? Very important for the broadband customer, right? And then beyond that, now what they have got in something. Now these two are very basic things, right? the amount of data consumed and the speed. Beyond that, they have bought in some other differentiating factor, right? So you can go for unlimited data with top up, right? So that's something fantastic. So if I'm having 799 plan plus 299 and GST, I get unlimited data. If I'm okay with 100 Mbps, fantastic, right? I go with that particular product. Then they have things like some subscriptions included. Netflix is there, Airtel Extreme is there, and I think something else, right? So and look at the subscriptions that are included. Why they have included these particular products? All these are basically the services delivered using the data services that they are selling to us, right? And as you start consuming, the reason they are giving Netflix is because Netflix is an OTT platform, right? So once you get used to, let's say, I think in the first one they are giving Netflix free for I think 3 months or so. I think that image is like shrunk in size. I can see that exactly. Once you experience Netflix, let's say free for 3 months, right? You might want to keep consuming that. Most of us are not able to get rid of these kind of things. They slowly become necessity in our life, right? Today, what we spend on, for example, the overall ICT products, information, communication, and telecom is probably 100 times more than what we are paying just about 10 to 15 years back, right? So once you get used to watching Netflix or maybe Amazon Prime or something like that, or Extreme or some other sort of content provider, you are not going to get rid of your particular broadband package, right? You'll only keep moving upstream. You'll go from 799 to 999 package because you may be watching one movie and your wife may be watching something else, kids may be watching something else. You are forced to move from one package to another, and that move so sort of there's a continuous upsell happening. Then there is something like unlimited local STD calls, right? Something like that. And this is on a this is not on a mobile. This is on a landline, right? Who makes calls from the landline? We haven't made calls from a landline in about last 2 to 3 years, right? So it's free because we get almost unlimited mobile calls anyway. And then there is a complimentary Wi-Fi router, etc. Right? So because it is required. If their package is like this and you go for 6 months, etc., they are giving complimentary Wi-Fi router. They are making the decision easy for you, right? These otherwise, okay, should I purchase this Wi-Fi router? What are the specifications? Can I buy something from outside? No. They made the decision very, very easy for you, right? So this is how by using this kind of a menu in a product, which is really, really and truly a commodity product, the telecom services are able to differentiate that with us, right? And now once I get this kind of a choice to me. No, it is very difficult for me to compare it with, let's say, Geo or somebody else, right? Very, very difficult. They make the comparison very difficult because some feature available here may not be available there, something may be available there which is not available here, right? So we are making it very difficult to compare with some other provider, and then you are focused and you think that you have got enough choice within the same range, right? So that is how you basically create a choice. Creation of choice is, I think, possible in almost every case. Many times the entrepreneurs think, this is my product, how do I create a choice? Take something as simple as tea, right? Tea you can serve in a paper, sort of paper cup, for example, use and throw cup, right? Those who want more hygiene may be willing to pay you two rupees more for that. Or you reduce the size and give them less content and don't charge anything. 2, 3 options available for you here. You can put adrak there or not, and it's simply a drop that you need to put there, right? That makes a difference. Without sugar, with sugar, that makes a difference. It's something like as simple as tea that we consume day in and day out, right? Potential for sort of creating so much choice in that. I told you an example of a fintech. This is an example of a telecom thing. If you see today, even I think when I was a child, at that time we had masala dosa and 1 or 2 varieties available. Now, if you go to any shop, you have like at least 30 varieties of dosa available, including some Szechuan dosa and all, which I don't even understand, right? More and more choice is being given to the customer on the same base. The base remains the same. So it's very easy to manufacture. It's very easy to scale, right? You should not try to create a choice which makes it difficult for you to produce and deliver, right? Create a choice which you can very easily deliver to the customer, right? So that your cost come down, the scalability is easy. And believe me, this is possible in almost all businesses. And most of the businesses, at least the big players, are very well using it. At times, the smaller players don't understand the importance of this, or they don't have enough expertise, or have not thought through that much because their struggles of daily life are something different, right? So creating choice extremely important, right? So That's first thing. Second is bundle and unbundle, right? So we have seen even in Airtel's case on the previous slide, they have bundled something together, right? So they have bought Netflix with some new and all that stuff. So they're giving bundling something. The franchise models and McDonald's and some of these being very good examples, they have learned this art very well, right? So you get pure burgers, cheeseburgers, etc. Also the variants within that, and they combine it with fries, small drinks, so on and so forth. What they are doing in the process is that you can very clearly see if I buy these three things together, I am paying let's say $5. Sorry, if I buy these things separately, I am paying $5, and I'm almost getting a fantastic discount of let's say 30-40% something like if I buy them together. By doing this, what they are doing is they are increasing your consumption. There are some of the products where simply by bundling or giving larger quantity, you are increasing the consumption itself. For example, let's take example of the wafers, right? Let's say potato wafers. Now, if it's a 20-gram pack or a 50-gram pack, right? The if you price it in such a way that the customer is tempted to buy 50 grams, believe me, the customer who was eating 20 grams in one go will eat almost the whole of the 50 grams package as well. This is what happens to us. The consumption itself goes up, right? One is obviously you save on packaging, etc. There are basic, savings that happen. You save on sales space, distribution cost, but beyond that, the consumption of the customer itself goes up. And McDonald's and all these are also an example of how they're increasing your consumption itself, and that's why I think about 40% people in US are obese because these guys mastered this art fairly long period of time back, right? So McDonald's is an example. So by bundling the product, you can create a different offering, and also because you are saving lot of your cost, because at the same time you are acquiring that customer for a higher value. So your cost of customer acquisition as a percentage of the revenue goes down, right? And then it becomes difficult for the customer to ascertain exactly how much he is paying. Your margins on all these products can be different. For example, you are trying to introduce a new product in new, which is a related product. You can bundle that product with the existing product and make an offer to the customer. Make it very easy for the person customer to buy. Once he starts consuming that product, after some time he will even buy it separately, right? Because when you are introducing a product at that time, the customer resistance will be very high. And there are companies that are good brand in the market, but when they bring some other product in the market, which is we think okay, but this company is not known for this, right? We don't have the experience of this company. But when they bundle and give it to us at an attractive price, we might buy it, we might experience it, and after experiencing, they cross the first hurdle. Next time, the customer is more likely to consider them as independently for that particular product. So very powerful strategy. The second strategy is to unbundle. For example, if your product is such that after some point in time you realize that lot of customers are not buying it because it's a big product. It has features A, B, C, D, E, and G. This is very relevant in specifically B2B businesses. I, for example, very clearly know examples of companies which are sort of bigger software products. Let's say an ERP solution, right? And since the market for ERP solution is reasonably saturated, not completely but reasonably saturated, it will be difficult to ask somebody to replace that product. Right? Enterprise products are difficult to replace. There's a lot of stickiness. So you can actually unbundle the product and sell them smaller bundles. For example, you are good at let's say managing quality audits as an example, right? So only that portion you can sell because the existing system probably doesn't handle that. And actually you can sell it at a premium, right? Because if you have integrated the integration etc. you have developed well, that unbundled product you can sell at a very good price, right? So bundling as well as unbundling is a fantastic strategy. You can very well understand what the customers want and how you can sell better and you can deliver better. One key strategy that you should look at. This is an example of a guy drinking at the bar, of course. But why do people go to a bar and drink? Of course, they want to enjoy with friends, etc. But besides that, what we are doing is we are basically paying per use, right? So we are paying for what we are consuming, and that is very important thing. So it brings us to this pay per use model, or at times called transaction based or volume related kind of a model, where we are paying to the supplier only what we are consuming, right? And this is something that makes customer very comfortable. At least when we start with something, we might want to have this kind of a model, and slowly we become sort of used to that kind of a model. This is an example of a company which provides cloud email services and cloud storage, Pune-based company. And these company, for example, has this model where you have the transparent pay-per-use pricing, and they measure it daily, right? So these basically attract the customer. If you want to even move out of the product, for example, tomorrow when I'm buying for certain product, I want to see that my lock-in is as less as possible. So how do I ensure when I'm buying the new product, okay, if I want to move out, my usage might go down slowly, right? But I can reduce the usage here and I can move out, right? So that's one attraction for me to buy this particular product. The pay per use is one of the risk reward strategies, right? So there is a risk and reward. So the customer, when he is buying, he feels risk that he is investing in this product or service, and it may not come up to his expectation, or his usage might go down. But by giving him pay per use kind of a model, what you are doing is they are giving him an assurance that we will bill you for your usage. So a lot of companies, for example, in capital markets where I was, big companies like Broadridge, for example, they have invented this model long time back, right? So they used to charge the big investment banks, etc., based on the transaction volume. So if the transaction volume goes down because for n number of reasons, maybe your business has got some customers have moved out, or maybe markets are not doing well, as you know, in financial markets, the volumes go down when the markets are not performing well. So in that case, your cost also goes down, right? You are not locked into a very high cost, and when your business goes up, you don't mind paying more because you are already, you are also making money from your customers. So this is where you are very well aligning the risk of the customer with by sort of putting your skin in the game, right? So pay per use is a kind of a very good risk reward kind of a management strategy, which basically works very well for the customers, and it can work very well for you. You need to have a lot of confidence in your product that the customer will stick with me. Then pay per use can actually give you much better rewards than some kind of a fixed price kind of a model, right? So another fantastic model to use, and I think probably the last one, I don't know, premium, right? So free to premium is something which has I think being practiced very widely now, and there is a theory behind that. If you look at, I think if you read Dan Ariely's book, he has mentioned a lot of examples of how the difference between 2 cents and 1 cent is small, but the difference between 1 cent and zero is huge. In mathematical terms, 2 minus 1 is 1, and 1 minus 0 is 1, right? It's just 1 cent difference. But when you give something at a zero price to somebody, there is a tremendous attraction towards that, right? Customers, and I think in his book itself, he has told us about a lot of experimentation that they have done, right? They reduced some of the prices from, let's say, 40 cents to 30, 30 to 25, and so on and so forth. They did a lot of experimentation to see how exactly the customers behave or how they react to the prices. And they found that instead of charging a small price, give something to the customers for free, and that works very well, right? Because customers also want to experience your product or service, and then rather than charging them some minuscule amount and making that decision difficult for them, give it to them absolutely for free, right? And then have a plan to move them to something which is premium, because if you are very confident that you are delivering great value to the customers are very likely to go for your premium products. Just another, just one example of that, which is Canva. So many of you might be using this product, which is a great product for creating graphics, right? And even now they have video and other options, and directly publishing on social media. So they have this kind of free, pro, and enterprise model, right? So, and this is there in many cases. For example, we are conducting this through WebEx. I'm not sure of WebEx pricing models, but I use Zoom, for example, right? So Zoom has a free model. Till 40 minutes, you can go ahead and you can conduct any of the sort of webinars or any kind of meeting that you want, right? So they are giving it free, but they are giving it up to 40 minutes. I think at the beginning of COVID, for a few months, they made it unlimited also for the users to give them a test of that product, right? And then later you have some other products, like here in this case you have pro product, which is for example $9.95, and then you have enterprise product for bigger kind of customers, right? I think most of the SaaS delivered products have this kind of feature. They want you to experience limited features for free for unlimited period of time, and that is one way of doing it. There are two ways of broadly delivering this premium strategy: limited features unlimited period of time. So every time I want to do X, right? They tell me, your this is a premium sort of premium feature, right? So after some time, if I'm really wanting to use that feature many times, I am likely to subscribe to that, right? So that is one thing. Or they give the entire product free to you for a limited period of time. So they let you experience entire product. Now taking this decision is not easy. You need to understand your product and the customer requirements very very well. Should you give limited product experience to the customer for long or unlimited period of time, or should you give him complete product experience for a limited period of time? Obviously, giving complete product experience to the customer for unlimited period of time doesn't make sense. He'll not pay you anything at all, right? So freemium is also one of the best strategies to work with. Again, you have pricing layers, choices, etc. created for the customer, but with free added after, right? When I showed you Airtel and probably McDonald's, they don't have free kind of offering, but freemium works in entirely different way, right? Because free or zero price is a big attraction for anybody. It's not about how much money you have. Okay, so I think they have created, I think, really and many others. If you have read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, they have also created a lot of experiments around free and so on and so forth, right? So it's not about the amount of money the person has. Even if a wealthy person is there, I think free is something that excites everybody, right? Anchoring, I think very good strategy. You know what anchor the ship's anchor serves, right? It maroons the ship in a particular position, right? The same strategy you can use to sort of freeze the thinking of the buyer, right? So you sort of maroon his thinking in a particular way. That's one strategy, and the other one is basically what is called decoy, right? So create a decoy so that the customer is confused, or lead him to something that you want him to do, right? So as you can see, this is a deer which got some prize, I think, last year for best decoy, right? Looks almost real, but if you see, at the lower end, you can see that the deer is standing on, something artificial, and it's an artificial deer which can be set up if you want to, for example, trap a lion or a tiger, right? So this is a decoy, and this anchor and decoy, even at times, we can use together to create really fantastic pricing. How do you do that? Simple example here, and I think very frequently given as well. Typically, how the popcorns are priced in a movie theater, right? So you have these three. In the first case, you have $15, right? A very big size, 6.5 and $3, right? That is one way of pricing these popcorns. So what happens is, normally people don't go to the movies alone, right? Most of us don't go unless we end up in a city and we want to spend some time and we don't want to go back to the hotel, etc. I don't know. Probably 1 or 2% or 5% people might be going to the movie alone, but normally it's a social experience. We go with our friends, and that $3 one doesn't make sense to us, right? And we can immediately say that the $6.5 thing is good. It's probably three times the volume. So instead of $9, I'm probably getting something which is good for a small family of three, right? And then there is a $15 one which is big, and its price also very very high, right? So for somebody, and usually, I mean, this is of course dollar pricing, but if you go to at least the pricing that I have seen in Singapore, Australia, etc., this is almost a little bit more than the price of the movie ticket itself, right? So people will tend to move to $6.5 because you have set the anchor high at $15, and in comparison to $15, then you start thinking, am I really going to consume so much popcorn, right? Maybe I'm also buying Coke with that. So will I eat the popcorn so much? Okay, then you rationalize saying, I think 6.5 is good. Why 6.5 is better than 3 is, of course, is giving almost three times the quantity than $3 kind of deal, right? So you use $15 basically as an anchor for people to buy the $6.5 popcorn. That's the anchoring strategy, and it's very very frequently used. Again, Daniel Kahneman's book, if you look at that, or there was a serial called Brain Games on Discovery. If any of you have seen that, fantastic examples of how anchoring is used, and we refuse to believe, but the way we are sort of enamored by anchoring, or we are attracted or manipulated by anchoring, is phenomenal, phenomenal. Read from Daniel Kahneman's books and read from or see this Discovery serial. It's not shown, I think, now. Brain Games, and you will be amazed by the kind of impact that anchoring has, right? And it's used in all the places. It's used all the places wherever the psyche of the customer is understood very very well. The second, I have just given this as an example. Which one in the second case you want people to really buy, right? You want them to buy a $7 one, and then $6.5 there is just a decoy, right? It is kept there just to ensure that the customers buy the bigger one, right? So of course, I've just put these prices. There is no, I'm not saying exactly how this should be done, but you can very clearly see that either if I am alone or I just need small quantity of popcorn, of course, there is no point in wasting money on $7. I can just go with $3, but otherwise $7 is the best deal. And in between 3 and 7, the 6.5 is kept there purely as a decoy. And we don't even understand that this is a decoy, and we end up buying $7. If you check, at the counter where they sell, if you sort of get to pick on the other side, there will be very few boxes of $6.5. In case somebody ends up asking that, they know people are going to buy either 3, they are going to buy 7. So when they order these popcorn boxes, for example, they might order 100 of $3 and maybe 50 of $7 and just 5 of $6.5, because they know nobody is going to buy 6.5. Obviously, you are going to get much more quantity by buying $7, right? So this is basically creating a decoy to push the consumer towards making a particular choice. And this decoy can be done in many different ways. You can create decoys even in a technology product. It's possible to do that, right? So, I mean, I think we discussed these 5 strategies, and I think some things just to sort of reinforce the importance of pricing. Warren Buffett, the legendary guru of investing, says the single most important decision in evaluating a business is pricing power. Invested in businesses like Coke, which really sell you, let me use this word, sort of water, which is, I think, sort of with lot of negative qualities, right? But still, Coke is making fantastic business because they have tremendous pricing power. Kotler, guru of marketing, says, pricing is the only element in marketing mix that produces revenue, right? Marketing as a function, most of it, basically creates cost. Of course, they acquire the customer, but pricing as a part of marketing, and many times pricing is a function which resides in marketing in large corporations. In some, for example, in IT companies, it resides in finance, right? So marketing, finance are the two popular departments where pricing typically resides. But Kotler says, it is the only one that creates revenues, whereas the other elements of marketing produce cost. So this is why it's very important. So I think that's about it. I think good. I could finish at 4 o'clock, so maybe we can go for few questions and answers. So if you have, Krishna, I don't know how you want to go that. Do we take the questions from the chat box?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, you can take the questions from the chat.
Okay.
Actually, first one was.
I'll just see how I can check out the chat box. Sorry, the controls are not visible to me right now.
So on the top you can go.
Yeah. Okay. Let me check.
First question is from Divya. I think if you scroll, you can. You want me to read?
No, I will go up. Yeah. Okay, give me a moment. In desktop, laptop, the same one, right? Okay. Sorry, this is something that you have put. If we act as a modern day system integrator for solution business, which of the pricing strategies would be most effective? Right. So I think the system integrators business is totally different. So I think one which I haven't sort of discussed over here thoroughly, for B2B businesses specifically, the pricing that is aligned to the ROI, right? Two ways of doing this. Return on investment for the customer is something you can calculate and show to the customer. You are paying so much. This is the product that you will use for, let's say, 7 years. These are the costs. This is the return that you will get on that, and return can come primarily from 2-3 ways. One is, for example, they can grow their revenues, maybe customer acceleration, acquisition acceleration, higher price for your customers I'm talking about. They may get some benefit. Risk management can be improved, or their cost can go down, right? Their cost of resources can go down, so on and so forth. So the ROI based pricing it works best in the B2B system integrator kind of a solutions business. The second could be outcome based pricing. So one is the ROI based, of course. The second is outcome based. The outcome based pricing, you link your price to the outcomes that the customer gets. For example, if you have a product that delivers, let's say, lower cost of customer acquisition to the customer, right? So customers cost of acquiring his customers goes down, right? So you can link it to that, how many customers will acquire more in next say 6 months, right? So you can link it to that. There are various outcomes that you can measure. Obviously, you can measure around sales, you can measure around profitability, you can measure around cost, you can measure around risk, and so on and so forth. There are at least some 5 or 6 ways, primary ways in which you can do that. So this will work more in the system integrator because it's basically a B2B kind of a business, and B2B has its own ways of how you can basically use the pricing strategies. I hope Divya have answered your question to some extent. Does more choices result in choice overload or make it fantastic? I think this is a great question. I think Indranil, thanks for asking that. If I didn't elaborate that, so there is yes, I think if you give too much choice to the customer will find it difficult to take the decision, right? And the customer may not take the decision at all. That is very much of a possibility, right? That is why you should keep your choices to the optimum level. And generally, 3 to 5 as a number is considered to be optimum number of choices that a human mind can deal with, right? So if I'm given let's say 50 choices, I find it very difficult. So one way of doing it is to restrict it to approximately 3 to 5. So in the examples that I showed, there were about 3 choices. 3 is supposed to be very ideal. And if you want to, you are forced to sort of have more number of choices. Do it in such a way that the customer clearly understands. For example, you can have the three pricing layers. You can say, for example, there is a product which helps, let's say, artists, right? So maybe graphic designers, let's say something like Canva as an example, right? So you can have maybe something for the individual professionals, you can have something for the small media agencies, and you can have for the enterprise customers, correct? So these are the three initial layers that you can, or variants you can create, and within that, once I as a customer, choose, I am an individual customer. Within that, you can provide me some more options, right? But the choice should be clear to me. If I'm an enterprise customer, I'll not look at a small agency or small business option and individual option. Then within enterprise, you can create some more options for me, right? So, for example, for the individual customer, you can give me choice like, for example, at least 2 basic choices which I see people giving very frequently is make the monthly payment or make the annual payment, right? Something as basic as that. And for the annual one, you give maybe let's say 30-40% discount. So the customer signs on and stays with you. And basically at one shot you are getting the cash also from the customer. Your cash flows are improving, correct? So this is the way you manage the choice. So ensure that customer only gets the reasonable amount of choices so that the decision making is easier for him. So fantastic question. Yes, the choices have to be optimum. If I miss that, I think I missed a very important point there. Yes. Netflix subscription plan. Okay, I think Anshuman, yes, so maybe it was first 1 month, right? Uh, doesn't choice increase the cost of production for a product? Yes, good question. As I told you earlier, you need to create the choices after thinking through a lot. What the customer wants and what we can deliver well. For example, as I was telling you, the base of the dosa remains same, right? The same thing. The platform is same, right? So that remains same. Only what is added as a garnish on top of that changes. Whether it is cheese or it's Szechuan sauce, right? It doesn't take you don't have to set up a separate place to manufacture that, right? In a restaurant, the if you are in the middle of a city, the cost of the premises is very high. Lease cost is very high, right? So you want to minimize that. That's why you create more and more varieties of dosa, but the base is same, and that is the one that takes sort of requires you to have people, requires you to have space. That remains same, and what you add on top of that, it keeps changing, and the customer gets a wide kind of variety. I give the same example for tea also. The base is same. You have to boil milk, you have to do all those things. But then on top of it, if you have different flavors, right? So you can just add that flavor and make it something different. You can just tap, your sort of different types of vessels. For example, paper cup, as I said, and a normal cup, right? Which you have to wash. So those two, very easy, right? So cost of production, and then you can, as I mentioned to you in case of tea, maybe for the paper cup you charge extra, and people are willing to pay extra for reusable cup. I've seen it everywhere because they are worried about hygiene. is the normal cup washed well or not, or you reduce the size and you give the cup free to the customer. So I think yes, correct. It can increase the cost of production, but if you create the choices intelligently, the revenue jump as well as the price that you get additionally will more than compensate for the cost of production. And while doing that, you can ensure that you are able to scale up. I think there is a question from in EdTech. There is a question around EdTech, but I'm not able to get that. Okay, education services company for young children, which strategy generally works best? Little difficult for me to answer just based on this. I think I'll need some more details on that for young children. I'm not able to answer this immediately. I'm sorry. Uh, Companies like LinkedIn Learning and Masterclass have subscription pricing models. Yes. So subscription pricing is one more thing. So let's say you have like Masterclass, for example, right? So they have, I think, about 100 classes might be there now. I don't know. They don't have too many, and they're really the best of the guys coming and teaching there, right? So, Dan Brown teaches how to write thrillers, right? And he's a very successful author, selling millions of copies. So they know, for example, by giving subscription, they are able to attract the customers who feel that he can go for all the products. But another thing, I think the customer doesn't use that, right? If I am somebody who goes to masterclass, let's say for recipes or for food, or I go for trying to be an author, I am not really going to spend that much time and watch the other classes that are hosted on masterclass, right? So it's difficult for that to happen. But what happens in the family, for example, we may find this very, very useful, correct? So subscription model can work better in those cases, and you charge higher to the customer also. I think if you I don't remember now, I know masterclass price, but about a year back I discontinued that. But yes, they were sort of charging more for the subscription, of course, than they were charging for an individual class. So yes, the subscription pricing model works well. Many of the businesses use that as well. How it helps is it accelerates your cash flows, correct? So you are cross-selling the products, you are accelerating all your cash flows together. So maybe if the individual course price is, let's say, $150 on masterclass, and the subscription is, let's say, $500 as an example, right? They get all these $500 at one go, right? So your cash flow improves tremendously. That is a good strategy. Books, okay. I think I mentioned about Dan Riley. I forget the name of the book. The book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. In any case, I keep recommending that book to everybody, even otherwise. Right? It talks about how human mind works, and only a part of it is about pricing. How we are as emotional beings, how we take decisions. Everything. He explains very, very nicely. He and I think his partner. He's a Nobel Prize winner. Kahneman, I think, has got 2 Nobel Prizes, and his partner died a little younger. So both of them have conducted literally thousands of experiments to understand human mind, and many of them are quoted in that book. So thinking fast, thinking slow, I think are mandatory for almost everybody. I think that I mentioned, and Dan Riley's book, you should do that. And let me do a little bit of selling as well. I think you can read my book as well if you are interested in pricing, right? So basically, price to profit. So you can do that as well. Yeah. Why does software industry move to pay-per-use based pricing over one-time cost? Right. I think the pay-per-use. I think I explained that the pay-per-use is attractive from the customer's point of view. It's a model where you are sharing the customer's business risk. So if I am a customer, let's say, look at the COVID situation. Lot of customers, usage of some of the products would have gone down, but still they have to pay. Correct? So if you are giving me pay-per-use model, you are partnering with me in a way, right? You are putting your skin in the game. If your business doesn't grow or if your business volume goes down, okay, pay me less. Right? So that's very, very attractive from the customer's point of view. From the vendor's point of view, if you are a business provide that, you also have an upside to catch, right? If the customer's business starts doing very, very well, of course you make much more money. So in that sense, it's a sort of model that balances the risk between the vendor and the customer. Right? So that's why it is very, very popular. If I am making a bag, I sell for high margin to retail with added feature, better design, etc. And for lower margin with less feature to resellers who usually buy for reason to sell cheap. Okay, so that is one way of handling. Yeah, product differentiation is one thing you can do. For example, you can very premier look etc. You can do when you are selling directly B2 sort of B2C. Whereas if you are selling B2B, maybe you want to give a base product or something like that. But remember one thing: the distributors are also going to demand a good product from you, right? So I really don't understand why you want to differentiate here. Maybe in a particular case you want to do that, but ideally I would not do that, right? Because the customer experience will be bad. If a person, it doesn't care whether he has bought to retailer or all. If it is a product produced by me, right? Once the customer's experience goes down, he will not even buy from me at or buy other product from the other place also, right? So I think avoid doing that. Uh, Yes, the selling cheap by the resellers, right? So I'll call them distributors, is one thing that can harm you. So there is something called maximization of profit. You want to maximize your profit. Your distributor wants to maximize his profit. At times, his profits may get maximized at a lower volume, so he might want to sell less. I'm just giving an example. But your profits are suffering because your profits are coming at the higher volume. There are strategies of avoiding that. There's something called, I have to use the technical jargon, pardon me, there's something called double marginalization strategy that you can use if you are selling direct as well as to the distributor. What you do broadly in double marginalization is you offer the tiered volume discounts to the distributor or the reseller, right? The higher he buys, you give him more discount, right? So then you don't have to essentially dilute your quality. Because end of the day, remember the customer is same. Once he gets a bad experience with your product, he may not come to you. So be careful in sort of giving product with less feature. But there's nothing wrong with selling a less featured product at a lower price if you do it as a clearly thought out strategy and do it in both the places. I'm giving you less feature, I'm charging you less. Less value, less price, more value, more price. Simply. Larger the deal, more the customer squeezes the vendor, they're left with no choice. Yes, this does happen. I think somewhere ultimately comes the art of negotiation, saying no, etc., etc. The simple pricing strategies are not going to help, correct? If the customer says, I'm a big customer and they ask you for that price, end of the day, you have to decide you want to accept it or not. But then, as I said, there are strategies of doing that. When the B2B players are dealing with each other, many times they do that. I just give example of a tiered pricing strategy, right? So, for example, let's say I am dealing with, I am a manufacturer of some power equipment, and my equipments go into project that L&T delivers, right? Larsen and Toubro. Now, Larsen and Toubro is a very big company. Let's say I'm usually selling these equipments at 10,000, and they ask me, you give it to us at 6,000, right? Because we are going to buy, let's say, 10,000 from you in 1 year. Now, my entire volume today is, let's say, 10,000. So I get a very big customer. I'll be tempted to sell it to Larsen and Toubro at 6,000. But so they will squeeze me out. But maybe still selling at 6,000 to a single customer makes sense to me because I am selling so much volume, my cost of sales is going down tremendously, and I am recovering my cost. So if you otherwise think it's a good financial decision, what you do is you give them a tiered pricing discount. Okay, you first 1,000 I will sell it to you at 100. Next, once you buy more, I'll sell it to you at this price, and in the end, in a year, if you end up buying 10,000 or more, your average price comes down to 60 rupees, as you are asking me, right? Or 6,000 rupees, sorry. So 6,000 rupees. So you can work out the tier pricing model with the customer. So that is possible as a strategy, but if beyond that the customers are squeezing, I know it's a tough market, so it's a call that you have to take. I don't think much I can much say about that. Uh, in segment pricing, a way to reduce choice burden on customer. Okay, so you can actually do combination of those. So as I was giving the example, you create a choice where you go for individual artists, the small agencies, and enterprise customers, right? So that is a segment. Within that, you can create some choices, but yes, you are reducing the choice burden on the customer. Where the customer can very clearly see, is he a small agency, is he an individual artist, or he's an enterprise customer, right? and then within that you can again create maybe 3 layers of 3 variants, etc., which make it easier for the customer. But that should be, the customer should be able to self-identify, right? The self-selection should be easy for the customer. I think yes, correct. It reduces the burden on the customer. Subscription prices, yes, correct. Masterclass, LinkedIn Learning they have. Firms such as Coursera have primarily a kind of pricing for every course. Yes, subscription pricing model. Sorry, I'm not able to understand this question. I have to just need to go through this. Companies like LinkedIn Learning and Masterclass have subscription pricing models in EdTech, while Coursera has primarily a kind of pricing for every course completed, plus with subscription pricing model for some programs which include number of courses. Yes. So it's a package of programs, right? Your thoughts. So I think, I think the kind of courses that basically Coursera gives is also slightly different than what basically LinkedIn gives. So LinkedIn courses are, as I've seen, typically very small, small modular courses, whereas the Coursera kind of courses are big. You do entire digital marketing certification, or you do finance for non-finance, right? These are big courses that they have, so they follow different kind of pricing strategy. And also the Coursera's of the world are mainly targeting the student community. One thing you have to say, their big market is student community, and I think relatively lesser market is the professionals. Whereas for LinkedIn Learning, etc., the professionals are the bigger market, because you come onto the LinkedIn platform only when you are around graduating. For example, as a part of nowadays, as a part of standard MBA PGDM curriculum, they have a digital marketing course, and they ask everybody to create a LinkedIn ID, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So that's when they get onboarded. So there is a difference between the segment that they are targeting also to a certain extent. And masterclass is in a different segment altogether. People who are looking to master a particular craft, be it writing, be it cooking, right? They only go to them, right? So that's why they have different kind of pricing strategies, and I think it works for them. Even in SMB, there is a customer push to give huge favors like unlimited liability, payment to vendor when customer gets paid by his end, etc., etc. Yes, I think these are real challenges. Yes. So what you do is, in that case, you build it into your cost, right? And it has to be built into your cost. If you are giving higher, basically what you are doing is you are giving higher credit to the customer, you need to charge them more, right? And also the other way of handling this is, give attractive cash discounts to the customer. The whether you should, when you give credit to the customer is using your capital, right? Let's say your cost of capital is 15% and customer's cost of capital is 20%. It makes sense for customer to use your capital because his cost of capital is higher, right? So that's what basically drives this equation. At times, giving an attractive discount to the customer, he might pay you even earlier, right? So I think the cash discounts work very well in these cases if you can, sort of scientifically manage that. But yes, I think the pressure does exist. Unlimited liability, yes. In fact, I was a part of some of the deals in which the banks were asking for unlimited liability, and we walked up the deal, right? I mean, we restricted it to 2 times the revenue that we are getting, and I think in some cases you have to simply say no to the customer. The intelligent, etc. It take while. I think this question is repeated. Okay, or how about portfolio pricing? Can you throw some light on that? Yes, portfolio pricing works well. For example, in services, the portfolio pricing works very well. If you have complementary, services, you can deliver them as a portfolio. The one of the ways of looking at pricing is, are you making a profit at a portfolio level or are you making a profit at the individual product level, right? A person like me, especially in consulting, is happy making the profit at a portfolio level, because end of the day in services, for example, it is very difficult to make exactly the same profit that you targeted. You might end up making much higher or end up making much lower. It is not really possible to do the pricing to the T. It cannot be done very accurately. It can be done more in case of the physical products or totally productized services like these trainings from Coursera, etc. So, but yes, portfolio pricing can work, and I think the Masterclass model of subscription is a portfolio pricing, right? You subscribe and see any of the classes. It's a portfolio pricing at that level. Co-creating the product is basically building the product along with the customer. many of these ERP products, like for example SAP, JD Edwards, they have been built along with the customers, right? So I think SAP mainly, I don't recollect now the customers they built with, and that is why they were able to make such feature rich and deep kind of products. So co-creating the product is very good strategy, and what you have to ensure is that you retain the IP with that, right? So IP retention is very important. For that, you may have to give a lesser cost to the customer. So customer gets the advantage of a particularly focused vendor delivering to his requirements. You get the advantage that you recover some part of the cost of delivery, and still you retain the IT. One key thing you have to remember is when you are creating the product, you should not build the product only for that customer. Yes, you have to deliver on the customer's requirement. The product should be generic, right? Because that customer is a representative of other customers in the industry. So which customers you are choosing, how ideal he is as a representative of the industry or the other customers, and then how to build a product which can be sold then without much customization to the other customers. That is very important, and I think then co-creation works fantastically well. Can you share the recording as well? Yes, I think Sushma, we do share the recording link later. Yes. So I think any advice for product pricing by not profits? No, I really don't have that much experience in not profits. Great. So I don't think. Yeah, I think there is some question towards the end. There's a consultant who's in between vendor and customer, and that reduces the dialogue. That makes a huge difference. Absolutely, yes. There are gatekeepers nowadays, right? So, for example, there are gatekeepers in many of the industries, and they do that, right? So, I think I am appointed as a gatekeeper in some cases. So, my way of driving the decisions is entirely different. I agree with that. So, I think good. So, I think we have tackled all the questions so far. So, I think Sushma has put the feedback link in the chat box. So please do give feedback. I'm happy to have talking to the alumni. I think most of the participants will be alumni of IIM Bangalore. Happy to be talking to you folks. I hope to hear from you. Please give the constructive feedback, whichever way it is. Okay, about the book, I think I don't know who asked this question. Question that I would really like to hear. So this is the book. The book is called The Price to Profit, P2P. Basically, how you grow your business profitably. It's published in about 6 months back. It covers aspects like why price is important. I think part of it we covered today, but it gives you actual examples of how price can impact you, and it discusses about 50 pricing strategies, right? So from traditional to modern and innovative and so on and so forth. It discusses those strategies with examples how they are being used in the industry, and then how you can implement the pricing in your organization. What all things you need to do if you want to improve the pricing culture in the organization. That's what it covers. Thanks for the question. Sushma, back to you.
Yeah, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time, taking your time and presenting the webinar. Yeah, I think we are at the end of the session. Yeah.
Thanks everybody. See you, and thanks to IIM Bangalore Alumni Network as well for arranging this seminar for us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. And I think recording of the session will be uploaded in our YouTube channel called IMB Alumni Webinars. I think most of you are asking. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. See you. Bye.